Hare Krishna. So the verse for this week is chapter 4, text 34. I'll get right to it. Krishna says, just try to learn the truth by approaching a spiritual master. Inquire from him submissively and render service unto him. The self-realized souls can impart knowledge unto you because they have seen the truth. Two parts of this verse is very easy to understand. The first sentence, just try to learn the truth by approaching a spiritual master. Of course, it makes perfect sense. And then the second part, which is the third sentence, those self-realized souls can impart knowledge unto you because they have seen the truth. Again, easy to understand. You want to learn something, you want to know something, you go to someone who knows. The person who knows is able to impart upon you that knowledge, that understanding, that skill, whatever it may be. That's easy to understand. What gets lost and we don't not often emphasize, and I truly mean emphasize on this particular issue, and establish our entire spiritual life on that second sentence, and that is, inquire submissively and render service. These two elements speak to the qualification of the disciple. And that's what I mean when I say we do not truly give proper emphasis. We do not base our spiritual life on that central principle, becoming a qualified disciple. We're going to explore these two terms, pariprashna and sevaya. We're going to explore them briefly. Pariprashna. Pari means, the prefix pari means to seriously inquire, right? Prashna means to inquire. Pari means to seriously inquire. To inquire in a manner that it is almost interrogative in such a way, a desperate need to know something. It is a very serious inquiry, almost like an interrogation, a very serious need to know the answer to a question. That's pariprashna. It's not merely because we're curious that we're asking a question, not merely because we want to sate some desire to know some trivia about spirituality. Pariprashna means we have a yearning to know something because that knowledge is going to make, and we recognize it's going to make a profound effect on our life. That's pariprashna. Then we go to sevaya. Sevaya means, one more aspect about pariprashna. In this word, in this verse, pari, the prefix, modifies prashna, obviously, right? But that is not the only thing that pari is modifying the verb, prashna. Pari is also modifying the subject matter of the verse itself. The subject of this verse is truth, knowledge. Pari is also modifying the subject. In other words, that upon which we are inquiring also has to be serious. The subject matter, the topic, has to be serious, of critical importance. We see this in the second chapter of Bhagavad Gita. Krishna tells Arjuna, why are you asking, or why are you mourning, why are you speaking of such things that have very little value? You're speaking learned words, but the fact of the matter is that you're inquiring about something that is inconsequential, which is very interesting because Arjuna is talking about life and death. but by the measure of spiritual knowledge, transcendental knowledge, the issues of life and death are insignificant. 2 verses later, Krishna says so, right? He spends the next 15 verses of the second chapter hammering home this misconception Arjuna has, and that we all have, that the material body, material body, and the experiences we have in the material body are of the utmost importance. Krishna puts that to bed immediately and conclusively. But Krishna is saying, your inquiry, my dear Arjuna, is not pariprashna. A person, an audience, who knows the value of life is pursuit of the absolute truth, moksha. That's the value of the human form of life. Without that pursuit, that ability to pursue moksha, then the human form of life is nothing more than being any other animal species. It is because a human being can pursue moksha that makes the human form of life special. So any question that is not involved in the pursuit of liberation, the pursuit of transcendental knowledge, those questions are, by Krishna's definition, not worthy of an audience. Those questions, the subject matter is not putty. It's not a serious subject matter if it's based on material considerations. The serious subject matter is truth, transcendental knowledge. Now let's go into seva. Seva means service. Seva, and I'm going to use the word seva because it's easier to, so we don't get lost in how ineffective English is in defining seva. Seva requires love. When we love someone, when there's a genuine appreciation for someone, seva is automatic. If there is no genuine appreciation for a person, seva is impossible to engage in. It's not seva, it's a job. It's a job if you're getting financially remunerated, of course. If you're not getting financially remunerated, then it's slavery. If it's not transactional in terms of some kind of remuneration, whether it's financial remuneration, whether it's prestige, it's also a form of transaction, many different types of transactions. If there's not a transaction going on, taking place, and there's no love involved, then the activity is slavery. A person is engaging in the activity because they feel forced to do so. That's not seva. Seva means the interaction, the transaction is irrelevant. That's the very definition of bhakti yoga. Lord Chaitanya, in his prayers in the Shikshashtakam, right? Crush me by your embrace, make me broken-hearted by not appearing before me, is irrelevant. I love you. So whether there is reciprocal transaction or not is irrelevant when engaging in seva. What is in evidence is love. So when the disciple can engage in this offering of seva, that means there's a loving disposition for the disciple towards the guru. When there is that loving disposition, then the openness of the relationship leads to excellent teaching and instruction, learning. The learning process becomes uplifting both for the guru and for the disciple. However, if the disciple has no appreciation for the guru, and the guru does not trust the disciple, what kind of teaching is going to take place in that environment? Seva, in order for seva to exist, means there's a loving environment. In such a loving, trusting environment, the learning process, the transmission of transcendental knowledge from one to the other, back and forth, is greatly enhanced, is magnified. The facilitation of that goes through the roof. That's the purpose of seva. These two things speak to the qualification of the disciple. Where we get lost, we, I meaning those of us in ISKCON, we get lost in chasing after the qualifications of the guru. The qualification of the guru is irrelevant. Let me qualify that. Of course, we want qualified gurus, right? To be a disciple to an unqualified guru is quite unfortunate. But in terms of the critical nature, or in terms of our development in spiritual advancement in Krishna consciousness, when we compare the qualification, the importance of the qualification of the guru and the qualification of the disciple, when comparing the two side by side, the qualifications of the guru is actually secondary. And that's what we miss. We shine a spotlight on whether or not the guru is qualified. That is very, very unfortunate, because it doesn't shine light on what needs to be emphasized, and that is a qualification of the disciple. First thing to consider, how will we even know if a guru is qualified? We are completely conditioned with prejudices. We have experienced traumas. We have our personal likes and dislikes. We have our own proclivities. We have our own cultural biases, our own even ethnic, gender biases. And yet we dare to presume that we can whittle out who is and who is not a qualified guru. That is the height of absolute arrogance. In our conditioned state, we would not know a qualified guru if one popped up and hit us on the head. I'm joking about it to provide levity, but the issue is dire, because we waste all of our time trying to suss out, trying to determine who is and who is not a qualified guru, when even if the person was qualified, we wouldn't know it. If the person wasn't qualified, we would not know it because of our own conditioning. Whether or not the guru was qualified in and of itself is irrelevant. 11th canto, Srimad Bhagavatam, Krishna's instructing Uddhava. And he tells the story of the king of Kashi, who encounters the Avadut Brahmin, the wandering Brahmin, mendicant that comes to the kingdom. The king of Kashi hears that there is this Avaduta Brahmin, self-realized soul in his kingdom. So the king goes to meet the Avadut Brahmin. And the king asks, my dear Avaduta, how is it? I've heard that you are a self-realized soul. Who is your guru? Who has given you this transcendental knowledge? The Avadut Brahmin says, my guru is revealing the teachings, revealing transcendental knowledge from within. So the Avadhuta Brahman first recognizing, gives credit to Chaitya Guru, the supreme Krishna within the heart. And then the Avadhuta Brahman goes on to say, I have 24 gurus: the river, the tree, the bumblebee, the prostitute, the cobbler, the elephant, the unmarried virgin girl. He lists 24 different objects and personalities and living entities as his guru. He says, from each of them, I've learned this bit of knowledge that has led me to some realization. So I have 24 different gurus. The qualification of the guru is irrelevant if the disciple is qualified. If the disciple is qualified, the guru can be an absolute moron. And guess what? The disciple will benefit and can deliver the guru on top of that, if the disciple is qualified. If the disciple is unqualified, it doesn't matter what the guru does. In fact, an unqualified disciple can destroy the guru. An unqualified disciple is the most dangerous thing on the face of the planet. Not an unqualified guru. It's not to say that unqualified gurus are not dangerous. Of course they are. Any unqualified person who is acting in a particular capacity and are unqualified to serve in that capacity, of course they're dangerous. But in terms of the spiritual development of living entities, an unqualified disciple can destroy a qualified guru. We see in the relationship between Dronacharya and Duryodhana. Dronacharya was a highly qualified rishi in his own right, the son of Bharadvaj, highly qualified. His disciple was a moron and caused his destruction, his disciple being Duryodhana. Bali Maharaj had an unqualified guru, Sukracharya. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is standing right there. Sukracharya could not recognize the Supreme Personality of Godhead standing before him in the form of Vamanadev. Luckily enough, because Bali Maharaj, being the grandson of Prahlad Maharaj, was able to recognize the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he was instructed by his guru, don't give anything to this Brahmin boy. Bali Maharaj disobeyed his guru. Now, there is always consequences for disobeying the guru, always. Bali Maharaj was highly successful in defeating the demigods due to the mercy of his guru. When he disobeyed the instructions of his guru and gave in charity to Vamanadev, the blessings of his guru were retracted. He lost everything because of his disobeying the instructions of his spiritual master. Still, however, because Bali Maharaj recognized the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Bali Maharaj was obviously, ultimately benefited. So it is not the qualification of the guru that is of paramount importance. It is a qualification of the disciple. And that's what this verse and a number of other verses will point out. Pariprashna sevaya. If the disciple is qualified, both the disciple and the guru are benefited. If only the guru is qualified and the disciple is not qualified, it can lead to destruction for both. Now, if you have a qualified guru and an unqualified disciple, there can be benefit. Of course there can be, right? Krishna points this out, and I believe it is the 7th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. Arjuna asks, what happens to the yogi who is unsuccessful in their yoga practice? What happens to them? Krishna says they enjoy in the heavenly planets for some time, and they come back to the earthly realm, but they take birth in a family of saintly people where they can begin again the process of spiritual elevation. So even an unqualified disciple who is receiving the mercy of a qualified guru, there is a guarantee. The guarantee is a second chance. That's what the guarantee is. Right? We always hear there's no such thing as a second chance, right? We always hear about that in the modern context and in modern culture. There's no second chance, or second chance is such a rare thing as a second chance. In spiritual life, a second chance is not a rare thing. In spiritual life, a second chance is guaranteed. Coming in the Parampara, we've had wonderful Vaishnavas in the Brahma Madhva Gaudiya Sampradaya, or Vaishnava Sampradaya, being Prabhupada and Nugas, Rupa Nugas. We are guaranteed that if we screw up in this life, we will get another chance to try again, and another chance to try again and again and again. That's the guarantee. That is the mercy of Prabhupada. That is the mercy of Krishna, even, of the process of Bhakti Yoga. We will always get a chance, a second chance, to try again, to make more advancement and more advancement. Right? Krishna says there is no loss, no diminution. There can be an interruption, but when we come back to the path, we start where we left off. That's the guarantee. But there can be an interruption where we have to suffer the consequences of our Vaishnava aparat by being unqualified disciples. To be an unqualified disciple leads to Vaishnava aparat. That Vaishnava aparat leads to an interruption in our spiritual development. We are guaranteed to get a second chance, but there will be an interruption. That interruption enables it to be some kind of purification. So to wrap it up, we spend far too much of our energy trying to determine who is a qualified guru. You can't. You and I do not have the ability to determine who is and who is not a qualified guru. That is the most, if you get nothing else from the teachings on the guru-disciple relationship, if you get nothing else on that, please, we have to get rid of this intellectual arrogance that we hold, that we pass judgment on others, thinking I have the ability to determine whether or not you are a qualified or unqualified guru. You might think, oh, it's so obvious this person is unqualified, or it's so obvious this person is qualified. What we do know, what I know, is that I have prejudices, I have biases, I have traumas, I have proclivities, I have likes, dislikes. All these things factor into what I, or how I judge another person, how I see that other person. And now I'm going to declare I have the ability to determine whether or not this person is a qualified guru or not. The hubris of that arrogant, egomaniacal mentality. That's the problem. That's what makes me an unqualified disciple. So even if that devotee, that person, even if she or he was a qualified guru, I need to stay away because I'm going to cause them problems because I am the unqualified moron in the equation. I am bringing my egocentricity. I am bringing my intellectual arrogance. I am bringing my prejudices, my traumas, my proclivities, my biases to the relationship, which means I'm going to engage in Vaishnav Aparad. I need to focus on one thing and one thing only, becoming a qualified disciple. Because if I become a qualified disciple, and that's not difficult to do, we can become qualified disciples. Pariprashna Sevaya. Criteria. By becoming a qualified disciple, even if my spiritual master is unqualified, guess what? I can deliver my spiritual master if I'm qualified. Tesham satatayuktanam bhajatam prati purvakam ditami buddhi yogam tam. To those who are constantly devoted to serving me with love, I give the understanding by which they can come to me. Tesham evanukam pratama ham ajnana jamtama nashayam yama bhavasto jnana deepena bhasvata. To show them special mercy, I, dwelling in their hearts, Chaitya Guru, destroy with the shining lamp of knowledge the darkness born of ignorance. If I am a qualified, sincere disciple, Chaitya Guru, Krishna's mercy will take care of me and my unqualified Guru. But I have to be qualified. So we'll end there. And next week, we're going to go into this topic of the guru-disciple relationship a little bit more, because upcoming verses elaborate on this dynamic. Hare Krishna.